Every morning at Balmoral, maids have to curtsy to empty rooms, and even if the royal just left, they bow to empty space, because it's a 150-year-old rule that was never altered. But that's just the beginning, since vacuum cleaners are prohibited and they clean carpets on their knees for hours, with some working 18-hour days for less than minimum wage, and they cannot speak unless spoken to. As one leaked review described the management as toxic. But there is something darker they found, something that made dozens of them quit overnight. In 1852, Prince Albert quietly sent $32,000 to purchase Balmoral after he saw an ad rain-soaked, and he did not even tell Queen Victoria initially, though that sum would be worth around $4.4 million today. And within just several years, they demolished the old house and erected a new granite castle by 1856, with Prince Albert even designing the clock tower himself, while more and more land was acquired until the estate comprised more than 53,000 acres, greater than San Francisco or Paris, and it had mountains, 150 buildings, its own power source, and a 3-mile railway erected in 1866 merely to transport royal luggage incognito. Even though Balmoral feels like part of Britain, it is not public, because it is owned by the royal family personally. So when deer are sold or cottages rented, the money remains with them, and though there were complaints by some people in Parliament, Edward VII declared it their inescapable refuge and never gave an inch, while the appearance of the castle is like something out of a Scottish fairy tale, completed in 1856 with thick white granite shining against hills. And Prince Albert had a hand in every aspect of the design, ensuring windows opened just so for fresh air and including carvings of all 9 of their children near the door, with 167 rooms, but hallways narrow on purpose so members of the family would bump into each other more frequently, as Albert believed it would bring everyone closer. The clock tower was modeled after a German castle and rings out in a flat, so it will not frighten the ponies. And though some people at the time declared it resembled a giant coal barn, that never stopped other homes from imitating it. And within 20 years, 80% of new country houses in Scotland were constructed in the same fashion, while Queen Victoria later said it smelled like pine and freedom. When the royals, under the king's window, and everyone makes a lifetime of silence vow, where if you violate it, you're off. Maids labor 18 hours, some days polishing hundreds of silver items, and tending fires burning in more than 50 fireplaces, burning 60 tons of birchwood per season, while meals are plain, royal picnics along the river where the king still washes the dishes. But rules remain firm. Since some workers can't talk back unless addressed, others have to live on the property and assist in slaying 1/200 deer each winter, and the estate's salaries run more than $3 million a year, largely paid by selling timber and renting cottages to tourists. Every September since 1858, something strange occurs at Balmoral when royals and workers gather together for the Gillies Ball, which begins at 7:00 p.m., and the king leads the first dance with staff, and even a dishwasher might get to dance with a prince, with people saying Prince Philip once put gin in the punch to loosen everyone up, while Princess Diana said it felt like a prom mixed with Downtown Abbey. But the rules never stop. As a kind of invitation, you get shows your rank, with gold edges for closer staff and plain for others. And at midnight the royals leave and everyone silently bows. In 1991, a young footman sold a secret about a barefoot dance and got fired. And since then cameras have been banned, though many workers still look forward to the ball every year, as it's one of the only nights they're allowed to call the king by his first name, because Balmoral is tucked deep in the mountains and only reachable by a long single road. It was always a good place to keep royal secrets, and Queen Victoria's strange bond with her servant John Brown grew here away from watchful eyes, while Edward VIII practiced his abdication speech here. And when Diana died in 1997, William and Harry were kept away from the news for hours to protect their peace. But not everything stays hidden forever, since in 2019, a cleaner leaked photos of the royal children's treehouse, causing the palace to ban photography and cover the windows. And years earlier, a former worker revealed private details, like how the Queen Mother drank to bed, and how Prince Andrew always needed 28 golf balls. And though he was paid $90,000, he got sued. Now even drones can't get close, because sky fences were put up in 2024, and Balmoral is quiet. But secrets still find a way out, while long days begin early for the youngest staff at 6 o'clock in the morning. When Maids head to the oldest kitchen and begin polishing over 200 pieces of silver before breakfast is served by 8. Then come long walks with heavy tea kettles along cold stone halls to avoid waking the royal dogs. And lunch means peeling 18 kilos of potatoes, after which they switch into clean uniforms and prepare for tea at 4. Then clean up muddy boots from the day's hunt. And most nights they reach their attic beds around 9:45, with these being 15-hour shifts and no overtime, just a quiet line in the old manual that says loyalty is its own reward. And one former maid said it was like giving your life to a shadow, and no one ever said thank you. Vacuum cleaners were banned because Queen Elizabeth hated the sound of them. So every morning 2 maids would get down on their knees and push little horsehair brushes across the carpets. And just brushing one hallway took 45 minutes, with dust so thick they had to rinse their aprons twice a day. And in 1990, the head housekeeper said the change added 9 hours of work daily, but pay stayed the same, and staff said their wrists hurt so badly they couldn't eat properly. Yet still no one complained out loud, and though the castle looked perfect on the outside, inside quiet pain spread beneath every clean rug, and talking was dangerous. As in July 1986, one maid was dusting when she heard Prince Charles whisper to Diana, and another servant hissed at her to act deaf. And the next morning she got a written warning, because there was a strict rule. Never take note of what the royals tell you. Twice and you're out, and out of a $250 end-of-season bonus. Other employees learned to use hand gestures, particularly in the breakfast rush. Some reported that Balmoral's corridors were quieter than a library, not from respect, but from fear. Everyone was in awe. Every pause was survival. The remuneration was inadequate for duty. At the lowest level housemaid in 1983, she made $18,000 pre-tax. That was only $4,000 more than the British workers' average. Despite working 60 hours a week and residing at the castle year-round, some parts of the estate still had antiquated toilets, so chamber pots were done by maids. It took 3 years to advance to first housemaid, but that merely brought the salary to $21 to $500. While male gamekeepers made approximately $26,000, most women quit after only 1 year. Royal historian Patrick Thorncraft went on to say it generated hushed tension that was never discussed, but always existed, like being in the cold with silk gloves. One regulation actually astounded new maids. If a royal departed from a room and a maid followed shortly, she was still required to curtsy to the vacancy. It was done to commemorate the ghost of the royal who had only recently been there. In 1987, at the Gillies Ball, the staff actually did this curtsy 61 times in a single evening. Some bruised their knees so severely that bandages were distributed along with their serving trays. One maid described it as curtsying to ghosts. It was a sign that their dignity mattered less than tradition, and no one ever questioned it. In March 1988, a French magazine printed a story that shook the royal family. It came from a young maid who had worked just 8 weeks at Balmoral the previous summer. She was paid around $10,000, more than she would have earned in 8 years. It was like a payback, however. She told all she witnessed behind palace walls. She described dinner rituals, intimate moments, even which dogs slept outside Princess Anne's bedroom. The UK tabloids had it within 2 days. Now, millions read what was never intended to be told. One of the sweetest anecdotes she shared was one that occurred in August 1987. At a formal dinner, a visitor unknowingly drank from the finger bowl, thinking rose-scented water was soup. It might have been humiliating, but instead the Queen and the rest of the royal family silently followed his example. They all took a sip of the rose water just to ensure that he didn't feel embarrassed or isolated. Staff totaled 17 dishes left empty after that dinner. That small moment uttered more than 1,000 speeches. It revealed a family that in private would drink perfume rather than embarrass somebody. Not all the tales were sweet, though. She stated that during Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher's visit during the summer of 1987, things were strained. The Queen, in the view of the maid, did not have her stay within the castle like the rest of the guests. Rather, she was dispatched to a remote little cottage way out on the grounds. Staff referred to it as Siberia. The palace quickly denied it, explaining that Thatcher had always slept at the castle, but her absence from the next morning's grouse hunt was noted. Weathermere protocol or not, the tabloids went crazy with it. Two dominant women in icy silence were catnip for headlines. With Charles and Diana, the photo was more tender. The Maid reported that they were like two teens in love. She would catch them holding hands when they did not think anyone noticed. Charles himself would go and get Diana's coat when they were going out on a picnic. Diana secretly tipped the young stable boys, but the tenderness could not negate the harsh reality. Housemaids were being paid a paltry $75 a week. Overtime, and frequently went unpaid. Breaks were signaled by a bell, as in the 1800s. Kindness in the hallways, but old rules still governed the house. The royal family were outraged when the story broke. Within a few hours of its hitting the streets, the palace put out a stern statement, describing it as a gross violation of trust. They initiated an in-house probe, screening all 348 employees who had worked the last season. Security procedures were altered in a single night. New employees were required to endure lengthy vetting and sign strict confidentiality documents attached to the Official Secrets Act. Anyone knew what that implied. Speak to the media and your career was finished. But the Queen herself was an enigma of contrasts. The Maid recalled Christmas in 1990 when she saw Her Majesty